Right.
So we are looking at something unprecedented on the planet, been alive than there previously were ever people alive. And postmenopausal women are not to be messed with. A postmenopausal woman is a woman in her full power. She is the one who is going to direct her kick to the part of the anatomy that most needs it and get things done. And she is no longer afraid of displeasing. She no longer has to be a pleaser. She's no longer concerned about, do I look pretty enough? Am I attractive enough? Now she is concerned for the health and the well-being of herself, her family, her community, and her world. And because we have, as I said, literally more postmenopausal women alive soon than generally there have ever been people alive on this planet, we are going to see what Margaret Mead called postmenopausal zest, or Leslie Kenton calls passage to power. We are going to see this zestful power of the postmenopausal women in a great many ways. I don't know if she's postmenopausal, but I certainly could point to the work of Melissa Gates as work that is redefining how we think of money and how we use money to get what we want and how to change what it is that we want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Neil. Susan, next we're moving on to cancer and other related issues. And in an excerpt from your book, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, The Wise Woman Way, you stated that if a woman has yearly mammograms from age 55 to 75, she will receive a minimum of 20 rads of radiation. For comparison, women who survived the atomic bomb blast in Hiroshima or Nagasaki absorb 35 rads. What advice can you give women for breast care and alternative to yearly mammograms?
You know, the Preventative Services Health Task Force of the United States several years ago came out and said mammograms are useless. And the director of the mammography screening for the entire country of England quit in disgust. He said mammograms are ruining more women's health than saving lives. And this is what the Preventative Services Task Force did. Now, I'm not usually down on things, but I've got to say, this is a bad day for me shortly thereafter. I was thrilled when I heard the news. It's like, at last, the truth is out. And then shortly thereafter, I was plunged into despair when Women of America rose up as one and says, you can't take our mammograms away from us. I thought, my goodness, they're like an abused child clinging to their abuser. Don't they understand what they're being told? Mammograms don't help. Mammograms are dangerous. Mammograms are not preventative medicine. My goodness. I remember reading an article by a radiologist, and she was there when Eastman Kodak brought out the first mammogram machine. And she said to them, you must be kidding. Women are not going to expose their breasts to radiation. Radiation causes cancer. And the representative from Eastman Kodak says, you just watch. We're going to scare them into it.
Wow.
And you know, that's exactly what has happened. Every year, we have a month of fear called Breast Cancer Awareness Month, promoted by Eastman Kodak, the makers of mammography film. For years now, I have been saying it's breast health awareness. The title of my book is Breast Cancer, ? Breast Health, ! The Wise Woman Way. Because we don't want to be scared and thinking we might have breast cancer. We want to be nourished and reassured into knowing that we are, in the words of one of my students, to our breasts, girls, you're in good hands with me. We want our breasts to be in good hands. Now, if you think about it, we're not talking about doing a breast exam here. We're just talking about touching your breasts, just kind of idly touching your breast, you might say, or, you know, like, hey, I'm going to touch my breast here for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, what is that up to? 30 seconds times 30 days, gosh, that's 15 minutes. 15 minutes times 12 months? Wow, that's 180 minutes. That's 3 hours. If I only touch my breasts for 30 seconds a day over the course of a year, I will have touched my breasts for 3 hours. If I go and get a mammogram, that doctor is going to touch my breasts for 1 minute. What's more, 1 minute is 3 hours. Hey, we don't have to be math geniuses to figure that out, now do we?
Right.
We know that 3 hours is more than 1 minute, and that we don't have to look for breast cancer. We don't have to be frightened about it. But if we stay in touch with our breasts, we will know what's going on with our breasts. And in Breast Cancer, breast health, the Wise Woman Way, I talk about herbal oils that we can use to massage into our breasts. I talk about destigmatizing the breasts. I talk about returning the powerful energy of the breasts. As a matter of fact, I've chosen Inanna, the goddess, to be on the cover of that book because she's holding her breasts, one in each hand, and pointing them out to us and saying, "Eat your heart out, boys. Look what I got."
So if you had to choose one of the oils to talk about, which one would you think would be best for breast care?
Olive oil.
Really? Okay.
And the caveat here is no essential oils.
No essential oils?
No essential oils. Essential oils are hormonal disruptors. Essential oils are immune system destroyers. And essential oils kill gut flora better than antibiotics do.
Oh, I had no idea. Interesting.
Essential oils are purified, concentrated extracts from plants. Now, last weekend at my workshop at Rockham Conference Center, there was a chemist in my workshop. And I said to her, "What would you call a purified, isolated, concentrated compound?" And she looked at me and she said, "A chemical." And I said, "Right, that's what I'd call it too." And what do the purveyors of essential oils say they are? The truth. Purified, concentrated, single constituents from plants. They're drugs. They're chemicals. They're not plant medicine. They're not natural medicine. They're not safe.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts on that. I had no idea.
So I do talk about that in my book, using the difference between infused oils and essential oils, and making your own infused oils or buying them from other people who are making infused oils. And most of them are made in a base of olive oil. But if you don't want to make an infused herbal oil, the olive oil itself will be enough. Again, what we're talking about here is being in touch.
Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
And next up, we have Green Meadow.
Hi there. Our next question's from LG. And medicine seems to go back and forth about the effects of female hormones on cancer, and it makes it hard to know what is a benefit and what is a danger. What are your current thoughts on birth control pill and hormone replacement therapies?
I'm going to give you a long answer to this question, so hang in there, everybody. Let's assume that the female hormone that this person is talking about is estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, men and women have estrogen, testosterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, and progesterone. So those are all female hormones. But we're just going to assume, for the sake of being able to answer the question, that they're talking about estrogen. So let's start here. We have basically 3 different sources of estrogens. Our own bodies make estrogens, and human women make 30 different types of estrogen. There are estrogens that are breakdown byproducts of chemicals and bleaches, and those things are in the environment and in our food, and those are called xenoestrogens with an X. X-E-N-O, xenoestrogens. It means they're from outside. So they're outside estrogens that come in, and they are actually estrogens, and they're active estrogens. And then the third type is phytoestrogens, phyto being a combining word that means plant. So they're plant estrogens, but the fact of the matter is there aren't really estrogens in plants. I mean, pomegranate seeds do contain estrone. That basically, you don't really find estrogen in plants. What you find is phytosterols. A sterol, if you're thinking steroid, you're on the right track. A sterol is a compound that can be turned into a hormone in the human body or in the chemical lab. So back in the 50s, we're talking a lot about the 50s tonight, aren't we? Back in the 50s, a very clever chemist, after studying the way that phytosterols are fermented and turned into hormones in the human body, found a way to replicate that process in the chemical lab. And he was the first one who was able to take plants and actually, interestingly enough, plant parts that were often being thrown away, that were considered waste, and to use those as a source of phytosterols or phytosterols, as it's sometimes called, and to, literally put them through a chemical process that turns them into estrogen, testosterone, and cortisone, as well as progesterone. So we had the four primary hormones that are used now, and they are all made from plants, as it were, but this does not make them bioidentical, as it does not make them safe. So anytime we start adding hormones to the human body, rather than using things like oat straw, which simply free up the hormones that are already there, we're actually playing with fire, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't work very well at all. So human women start making estrogen at 20 weeks of gestation. So gestation's 40 weeks. Halfway through gestation, human women are already making 29 kinds of estrogen. Human girls are born making those 29 kinds of estrogen. We make those 29 kinds of estrogen every single day of our lives, from 20 weeks before we're born until the day we die. There's never any day that any woman could be said to be estrogen deficient. Starting at puberty, and for approximately 24 to 36 hours out of each month between puberty and menopause, women make another estrogen called estradiol or estradiol. And this estrogen is to breast cancer as kerosene is to fire. Kerosene doesn't cause fire, and estradiol doesn't cause breast cancer. But you have a spark and kerosene, you've got a conflagration. If you have breast cancer and estradiol, that breast cancer is going to progress rapidly, and it could be lethal. So let's look at these three kinds of estrogens: the estrogens we make, the estrogens that are in plants, but we have to get them out of the plants, we have to ferment them out, and the estrogens in the environment. We can also pool all these together and have another way of dividing them, and that is to divide them into short path estrogens and long path estrogens. And what this really means is short-path estrogens are metabolized very, very easily, and they get to receptor sites, and they fill the receptor sites quickly. Long-path estrogens are metabolized through a longer, slower process. So ideally, they get to the receptor sites only to find no vacancy, no room at the end, sorry. Short-path estrogens, you've probably already guessed, are really healthy and keep the body fit and strong. Long-path estrogens, like estradiol, are the ones that cause cancers. Breast cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, all of those reproductive cancers can feed on not just any estrogen, but the long-path estrogens. Well, here's the bad news. The bad news is xenoestrogens, those estrogens from the environment, they're long-path estrogens, the cancer feeders. Oops. The good news is most of the phytosterols, when they're converted in the body into estrogenic factors, are short-path estrogens. There's a few herbs we're not so sure about, like hops, which you're going to find in beer,